Hey, welcome back to episode 2. If you made it this far.
Good morning or good afternoon.
Shaylin Matthews and
Jessica Tritz.
From Oak Road Farm Pyrenees, and
We're the dog ladies. Central Wisconsin Bernedoodles,
Yes.
That's me.
yes. So if you made it through our introductory one, we talked a lot about how we got started. And so we kind of feel like feeding off of that is kind of how we raise puppies, how we socialize them, how we pick from our litters our puppies we want to hold back for our breeding programs, and how you as a family can pick your puppy from a breeder, to give you some tips on that and what that kind of looks like if you're really, specifically wanting certain things so it goes well. I have a lot of people come to me that will be like, and I did this so many times in my early years, like, oh, we got like this free puppy and it was great. Like, it was so great. We loved him. We've had him for 15 years, but it was a really hard 15 years. Like, he was reactive or just chewed everything. There was just some things, because there is some, breeds that will get crossed. That don't do well together.
Breeds.
Yeah, and like we didn't realize, like, we got a chocolate lab, our first puppy, after we got married, and we did not realize
how busy they are.
Like, my goal was to tire him out every day before he tired me out, and it never worked. It never worked. He always won that game. So, that's what we're kind of going to dive into. So,
sounds good.
You want to take it from here?
Yeah. Well, I'll ask you. So, we have built our programs around a lot of the same philosophies and programs, and so I don't even remember who found it or started it or where we went. I don't even know. But Jeanette Forey has, it's called Badass Breeder. Sorry if there's kids listening. I didn't choose the name. She did. And I love it. But so she put out a book for breeders, and I read it, and it was so impactful for me. And
it's like the holy grail of breeder stuff, because you're just like you think about this stuff, but you don't think of it in that depth, you know. But
and she's very black and white. I loved her from a breeding standpoint, and now she's actually put out a book for puppy people. So I don't know if you've read her puppy book or encouraged it. No. Oh my gosh, it's so good. I have puppy families texting me pictures of what they read from it, that day, and they're loving it. So just FYI, she's got a great breeding book. If you ever want to learn about breeding, even just from a pet standpoint, or if you are a new breeder, I would highly encourage you to read her book, The Badass Breeder. And then she also has this puppy book. I think it's called Raising an Empowered Puppy. But her stuff is amazing. And she has like an entire developed program of how she socializes puppies, and the importance of when you socialize, how you socialize, what you introduce, what milestones are important. And just making sure that, you're so good about this, handling your puppies all day long, and making sure that they have enriching opportunities from a very early age. In my program specifically, there's someone there every single day, 7 in the morning till 8 at night. There's somebody handling those puppies. When they're really young, it's, even later in the day, making sure that the mom is being supported, the puppies are being supported. And so how do you structure your day around puppy to make sure that they are having those enriching opportunities and being socialized, and how that impacts their life in the long run? And so that's what we've utilized, and I know that you do the same here.
And I think we both have added to that too. I think,
Absolutely.
like, I've added things to my program that I've thought of that weren't in the book and things, but just for like where I'm getting a lot of people wanting service dogs, where I'm adding in wheelchairs and things like that, and helmets and things like that, where if they're working with someone with disabilities, that stuff's around. They're just, it's so like, we just walk over it, walk around it. We don't even care, And the reason why I thought of that, let me give you a little backstory. My daughter has a border collie named Jack, and he loves everybody. We tease and say we should have named him Mayor, because he wants to shake all the hands and kiss all the babies. So we take him everywhere. He loves everybody. And we were in Tractor Supply one day waiting in line, and Jack's just waiting for his little biscuit, because they're always spoiling him. And a guy came up in a wheelchair behind us, and he turned around and he went, like, screeched. The guy didn't hit him or anything.
Scared.
He never seen one. And it was like this light bulb moment went off. Like I said, like, God is always putting little things in your path to like show you what you need to do next. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, and then the guy was like, hey, and I felt so bad for him. Like, the guy was super gracious. And then Jack was like instantly like tail wagging, like, oh, hey, wait, this is a guy in here. Yeah, but I never seen him react that way to anything. He's never been afraid of anything.
They only know what they've been around.
And I'm like, we don't have anybody in our immediate family who has a wheelchair. And so of course he's not going to know And so I bought a wheelchair off a marketplace, and now it's really in with the puppies from like basically 4 weeks and on and off. And when they're out playing, and they're like, they don't even care. They don't even notice it. They're sleeping underneath it. They're chewing on the tires. It's just part of what they do. And because I was getting so many people that want to train them for service, I was like, I just need to get a wheelchair off a marketplace just to have it around, so it becomes just a part of their everyday, just like their dog bed and like sweeping the floors and vacuuming. It's just a part of what they see.
Well, you think about animals in the wild, and as a new mom, some of you may not know this, but they're very protective, and they don't want anyone else around their puppies. And so whether it's other dogs or other people, you have to be really careful about your interactions with the mom and make sure that they have their own space. And so those first couple of weeks, their socialization is just letting these puppies know that there are people in the world, and people are safe, people can handle them, people can be around the mom. And just making sure that you are doing that early neurological stimulation, and early scent introduction, getting them familiar with other smells in the world, putting, cold things on their bodies, manipulating their paws, putting them upside down, things that are not normal, right? If they're just nursing, they're just laying there. Right. So that handling is really important in those first couple of weeks. For me personally, I started with like puppy culture and some different things.
Yep,
like
I dabbled in that too.
Blended a lot of different things over the years to get to the program that we have currently. But then once you get to like that 3-week mark when they're starting to eat and you're starting to introduce toys, I mean, you're just letting puppy know that this is normal in life, right? But if you stop and you take a step back and you think about breeders that maybe aren't with their pups as much as we are, or those quote unquote backyard breeders that just are raising them in a pen outside where they don't have anything, they don't know that toys are safe. Toys are something to be played with. They don't know what a toy even is. They're going to take your shoe, or they're going to take something inedible and try and play with it. And obviously that's dangerous, but just giving them opportunities to interact with things and develop that play behavior and appropriateness and learn how to be around people, what's appropriate for greeting versus
and just
not.
noises. Like I said in the previous episode where I get my Great Pyrenees, it's always out of a barn stall, we have our livestock guardians, but I don't need any more. So when I'm bringing in Great Pyrenees, it's for our breeding program. They're going to go into guardian homes. They're going to live on the couch, And when I bring them into our home at first, they're so scared of everything. I mean, they'll run into the wall because
everything's new.
It's just crazy. Like I've seen them literally run into the wall because they turn to run from, like, my son's walking through the house fast on our wood floors, and they're just like, whoa, like slam into the wall. And then they're scared of the wall, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's so much work.
It's new people, it's new smells in your home.
Nothing's been introduced.
All these new fixtures, and just life inside is very different than what they were used to.
And I think too, it's good to know your breed. Like I dabbled in some puppy culture, and it was a great program. It reminds me a lot of Badass Breeder. But with puppy culture and Great Pyrenees, it's very gentle introductions to don't push. But at a certain point with a Great Pyrenees, you kind of have to push. And I know you and I have talked about this before, where I have to just like suck it up. You got to deal with this. Like you're 8 weeks old now and you're still getting nervous. So that's why I kind of mostly transitioned over to Bab, because I found with the Great Pyrenees, and I did get one Pyrenees, that one laying there on the floor, was raised with puppy culture, and she had a very intentional, she was a great breeder, very intentional program. But this dog is afraid of her own shadow, and so she's mischievous and ways, bless you, that like she shouldn't be, like getting on the counter still at 5 years old, because you don't, I don't know. It was just, so I find with Great Pyrenees, they didn't do as good with the puppy culture. Yeah. And just even me knowing, even with like Bab too, there's a lot of like gentle progression, where some of them, like, they're not progressing because they're just big scaredy cats. I know everyone's like, oh, Great Pyrenees are big, bad, brave. They are in certain situations. If a coyote's going to eat your sheep, they're going to be big, bad, and brave. But if you turn on the vacuum cleaner and they piddle themselves, don't stop showing them the vacuum cleaner, like they're just going to have to get used to it.
And I think you always have to be adapting your program. See what works within your program, add to it, add value, take out things that you don't find add value, and adapt within the means of what your program can offer to. And I think that's proof of the growth of your program is always taking things that you like from different breeders and incorporating that into your program. And I do that all of the time.
Me too.
I'll
see some like I don't know if it was you or like our friend Wendy posted some cute toy they were using with the puppies, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I didn't even think of that, and I'll go buy it on Amazon.
The teething ring.
Oh, there was like a crab that crawled. I was like, that's so cute. I love that. So I was like, oh, that's awesome. And
the girls and I were talking about that. We had the crab before it was the viral. Oh, we call it the squid.
The squid. Oh,
so
is it the
Mr.
Squid?
Okay, we had Mr. Squid before Mr. Squid was cool, and so just like giving them opportunities to see things that are not necessarily going to be in the normal environment, but would be replicant of what they're going to see when they go home.
And to chill like their jump scare effect, when they something new, loud, and quirky shows up, they'll be more curious than like, like I'm trying to freak out and pull out of my collar and run down the street,
And I don't know, maybe normal people, quote unquote normal people, average people, you people, have a quiet home. We don't have a quiet home. You don't have a quiet home. I don't even know what a quiet home would be like. It's very strange to me. It's almost deafening when it's too quiet.
Seriously.
And so we always are playing something on YouTube, on the nursery phone. There's always noise. And so we've taken it one step further, and we have an entire nursery playlist of like New York City sounds, because in the country we don't have a lot of street noises. So just hearing like
construction
sirens,
noises, baby cries, phone ringing, like all that, even that they'd find in a home, but they're in a kennel
There's
right
a
now.
Playground sound list. There's a kitchen sound list. Country music. All of our pups go home country music lovers. I don't know what you play for country, but I feel like everybody listens to country in ours. So just having those sounds too, because if you're in a space that's very quiet where there's no stimulation, they don't know how to process that. They don't know that it's safe. They're not familiar with it. And what I've learned is if they can hear those sounds from a very early stage, when those puppies go home, I give that playlist to my families and they can play that then when they go home. So if they need to leave and run an errand, they can turn on a playlist that they're familiar with, and it helps them soothe, and it's familiar to them, versus if they're not being socialized, they're everything is such a new stimulation for them that
I've never given it to my families. That's a good idea. And one thing that we don't play this super loud, just so you know, it's not blasting through speakers. Like, it's just a nice background noise. And then also one thing I do that I think is really important is when I have winter puppies, I play fireworks sounds.
Oh, absolutely.
And then I remind the families in May and June, start playing those fireworks sounds again as we approach
thunderstorms. We
and
have
I get
thunderstorm that we play. So
for the winter, especially because summer we get a lot of that. But in the winter, I'm like, this is so important because. And then I get so many videos of the puppies laying out at the 4th of July fireworks, sleeping at a year old, and pew pew. It's just craziness. And they're like,
same thing. I mean, even if it is, let's say that they're in the whelping room closest to where the TV is, it's probably inevitably a little bit louder for them. They're used to having those louder noises as a part of their daily life, so they're not scared with every little. I remember with our first child, like any little whimper you made, like you ran right to them, or you were walking on eggshells so that they didn't hear you. I should have been blaring the music, keeping the house loud,
walking through the trombone. Wow, you're doing trombone.
Number 6, she sleeps so well because she probably sleeps through everything, and so
so true.
Embrace that in puppy life, and just if you're a breeder looking at this from that standpoint. Make all the noises, do all the things. Don't treat them with these tender gloves where you can't make those sounds, because it really is helpful for them as long as you're doing it appropriately, obviously, and getting that out there and letting them be comfortable and feeling safe within it. They have people that are handling them, making them feel supported while they're hearing these sounds and getting their food and living their life and very safe in that environment. And so how you structure that is really important. What about like once they get to that older age? Like I love, for me personally, those first couple weeks are so nerve-wracking.
Yes.
When you're worried about
so
mom
tired.
And you're worried about babies. You're exhausted. Yes,
so
mom's
tired.
Exhausted.
Yeah.
So once you get to that like 3 to 5 week mark, I love that phase. I absolutely, they're starting to play and they're developing these little personalities.
They're so freaking cute.
They're like tiny little dogs. Like they're actual dogs. They're not these helpless little chubby babies pulling themselves around.
And they start to get like they'll start to growl and yip at me when I come in
they get
because their eyes open. Yes. But then they go from like hating me to like loving me, but
oh my
still
gosh,
hating
they run
me.
To you with these happy tails.
Yeah, and it's like, and then like sometimes they'll still growl, like I'll be petting them and they're like, "Grr." Like I'm still mad at you.
Each other,
I don't know why
too.
I don't like you, but you're not my mom, so I don't like you. You know, and
I
I'm
don't
like,
even
no,
think, is it really at you, or is it just that they find their voices? It's the cutest thing
ever. It is
ever.
so cute, and mine look like little polar bears. So
I love your babies.
I just smooch them constantly. They're probably so sick of me kissing them all the time because they're so cute.
I love it. And then you get out toys and you start introducing them to different textures. Same thing. Like if they've never had different textures in their mouth or to step on and be around, they don't know what to do with it. Absolutely. And so getting those different things out and socializing them. For us, when we start to see more solid personalities, I would say is like kind of in that 6-week mark is when they really start to have a little bit more stable personalities. And then between 6 and 8 weeks is where you really can see that growth and that development happen in terms of like confidence and human focus, like running up to the gate whenever your babies, when they hear you, they probably come running. Grandma's here.
Yep.
Grandma's back.
Yeah, well, I feed them, so I'm sure that's the only reason why they love me. But
no, they love you so much.
I actually kind of look forward to when the mom goes back to her guardian family, because then they're just like my little shadows then, because they're like, okay, mom's gone, so we can focus. But speaking of focus, having that music and the things playing on in the background, I do feel like helps them just be so used to the noise that when you are working with them and training them, they're not even distracted by all of a sudden the soundtrack switches from traffic, cities to phone ringing. They're just oblivious. They're just still focused on you and what you're working with. And one thing I do with that as well is I ask my families, do you live by anything that you would want them to be used to? Say they live really close to a firehouse or something like that, which I play those noises. I play ambulance noises and stuff. We had one family say, we live by a dirt bike track. And I was like, great. So we started doing the dirt bike noises.
Babies crying.
Yep. And
there's a baby crying playlist. Like if you have new babies coming, like play that.
We had someone who says we cut our own wood. So we have a huge like log splitter. So YouTube has everything, every noise. Be careful what you Google. Just kidding. So I Googled log splitter noise and it showed up, and it was like a 40-minute video of just log, going through the splitter. So that puppy was completely exposed to all that.
I mean, we do this in the first 8 weeks, but I think for any family listening to this, those first 8 to 12 weeks when puppy comes home, so, the first 6 months of their life, essentially, up until that point, is when they are the most adaptable, the most fluid in terms of making this a part of just their character, their temperament. And so when you bring puppy home, I would encourage every family to keep doing it. So if you have, the sawmill, that you're going to play that even when you're not working. If you want puppy to be comfortable with, any sorts of sounds that might be in your home environment, play that from the very beginning so that they're familiar with it and used to it, and it just continues to be a part of their daily life.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's so important for them to be able to adapt when they transition home. And so the more that we can engage them in that early on is really important.
So let's talk about structure for a minute too, because I feel like our kennel's kind of on a schedule every day.
Oh, absolutely.
And I send that schedule home with families, and I say, obviously you can adapt, but this is the times I feed. This is nap times. This is, when they're out playing, whatever. We have indoor-outdoor kennels here. Jess has an outdoor puppy run. So there's times where they're outside during the day. There's times where it is absolutely okay for the puppy to chill without being
stimulated.
Yes, they need that. They need, do we love being stimulated 24/7? No, we need chill time.
Well, and think about babies. When your baby is overtired, they are a hot mess.
Yeah.
And a puppy is no different. They need to have downtime. They have to be able to self-soothe.
Because they're growing so fast. They sleep about 20 hours a day on and off. Yeah. So, we need to let them have downtime. And even when it's playtime, I'll still find them out there sleeping, which is fine. That's their choice. But there is time where the kennels get quiet, and it's the middle of the day, and things are going to be quiet and shut down for a couple hours, and everybody's going to chill. And then we can get up and play and have our, our second supper or whatever, because they're fat little puppies. But, so then I feel like it helps the families too as they go home to be like, okay, these are the times. And you can, I always say you can adjust that to how your life works.
Because everybody's life is so different.
But if, this is how we do it, and so you can pick up from here.
Having that routine, I mean, we talked about the playlist, but let's take it one step farther and let's build that type of routine into some of those playlists. So like we have our feeding times and all the things in the nursery, but 8 o'clock is lights out and that sleepy time song goes on. So every single night our puppies are hearing the same song, and that is their cue that the lights are going down, we're done eating, we're done drinking, we hear this sleepy time song, and that's what kind of lulls them into sleep. And so when they transition home, if their families replicate that routine and they stick to the same sort of structure and they build it obviously within their own life, they can help puppies transition because it's familiar, number one, but also they already have that routine down because our structure is so set every day, and they can just continue that when they go home and build off of that. And I think that that's why it's such a smooth transition for our families, because we start that from day one, essentially.
Puppies are never like they're not really a smooth transition ever, but like if you can take some steps or get a puppy from somebody who does some of these things, it will help. It really does, because they are situational. So they're not thinking long term here. They're not thinking, what are we going to do at 2 today? They're thinking, I'm doing what I do every day at 2. Like, it's 2 o'clock. We're having downtime. It's just how it is in this world. This is what we know. So there's very, very situational. And so just keeping some of those patterns is very helpful when you have a very quickly developing puppy who might start teething and all that stuff, where they're driving you nuts and you're like, you know what? I know at the kennels 1 to 3 is quiet time. The puppy's going to go in the kennel from 1 to 3 today. I just need a break, and they're going to be okay.
Right.
And this certain music's going to play or whatever, you know.
And having expectations, you know, we talk about that all the time, is like having rules and expectations. So within our home, we're going to work, you know, during this window of the day, and during this window of the day, you need to be in your kennel or you need to be in your playpen, and you need to be able to be independent. So whether that's with a Kong or a meat bone or an antler, something that they can be, you know, distracted if they're not ready to go to sleep, or if it's nap time, make sure that you've gotten their mental and physical exercise done first, and now it's nap time, and structuring your day. And so empowering families to understand how to structure a day around where they're at developmentally is really equally important too.
For sure.
And that way they can make sure to establish that within their home once they transition.
Yeah. It all really helps like form their personalities and what they're used to and what they're not used to. And I feel like since doing these things, it's just been so much more successful for puppy placement.
Oh, absolutely. Well, let's go back to like weeks of development. So you do all these things in those early weeks. You're establishing routine. You're starting to see personality come out. At 7 weeks in our program, and I think you do the same, is when we go through and do individual temperament testing. And if you've never purchased a dog from Shaylin and I, we have our families choose at the end of the process. And there's
that day, puppy go home day for us.
There's a very specific reason that we choose at the end. And if you're looking at this from a breeder standpoint or a pet standpoint, I think that's a really important point to make, because you don't have all of the information that you need until you get to the end of the process.
Right.
And so at 7 weeks, we go through, and based on the Badass Breeder protocol, again, we go through and we do what's called temperament testing.
Yep.
And in temperament testing, I feel like, I don't know, what do you think? So we know our puppies, right? We know everything that there is to know about any given day with our puppies, right? Like you could pick up a puppy and you could tell me everything about that puppy in terms of its human focus, its sweetness, what its quirks might be at that point of development. But during temperament testing, certain things can come out. And I like it because I think it's a better guide in terms of like, what is that transition going to feel like?
Right.
So we know how the puppy acts in pack life.
I was going to say, it's so different taking them individually.
It is. And
I find I get a different puppy. Like I'll take my most outgoing, energetic, like, look at me, puppy, and take it into an area where, because you test where you've not ever had the puppy.
Yeah.
And they're like,
you put them through a series of like challenges. So like you open an umbrella
noises,
in their face. You drop a pot
smells,
and pan. There's food. There's tactile boards. There's a fake dog that I mean sometimes it doesn't do anything, but sometimes they're terrified of their own shadow, and you're like, wow, you acted really different on your own than you would have as a pack.
One thing that I really like seeing from it though is their sensitivity to like we'll lay on the floor and cry. and flop around and see if they're, what do they call it in there? Why can't I think of it? Not as...
tenderheartedness.
Yeah, tenderheartedness.
You
don't get to see that when they're in a pack.
Do you ever feel like your dogs are not tenderhearted? Like, no. For me personally...
Mine are pretty tenderhearted.
You're laying on the floor... crying out,
screaming, wailing. If you've ever seen it, it's a beautiful scene.
If you haven't noticed, women have hair.
Oh yeah, they eat my hair.
Every puppy loves hair.
Yeah.
So I mean, for me personally, I would challenge you to find a puppy that doesn't come over and like either lay on you or get excited or give you kisses. They always do, right? And I love to see that because you want them to come over and you want them to be affectionate with you. You gauge if it's overly affectionate or not in the test. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe this breed is just different than some others. I don't hardly ever have one that doesn't come and investigate.
I don't usually have them that really chew on my hair too much unless I have a really outgoing one. But I'm mostly they'll either stay away and look at me judgmentally, which I don't blame them, or they do come over and cuddle me like, oh gosh, what's the matter? Which is really good for placing service dogs, which is a whole nother podcast, But then I kind of can help families that are looking for service dogs or just looking for whatever. But I do find that the very, very shy ones that I'm most nervous about placing, that I'm most worried about placing because I'm like, this dog just needs gentle introductions to things. I feel like I always have one, at least in my period litters, that's very, very shy. And someone always falls in love with it. But they really, like, if I know this dog, well, I already know it's shy, but during temperament testing, say it just curled up in the corner and did not move. You know, I couldn't get it to do anything. Yeah. I always worry about that. Like, oh gosh, is this dog going to turn into like a nut, like when they take it home? I find that they really thrive really well with the families because I can be like, this dog is really shy. So don't just take it to a family gathering. Like, let families come individually and meet your puppy. Like take it in the car first to some places and then let it out to some places and just like build its confidence. Or if they already have, like we had just one go home, the family wanted it because everybody loves an underdog. So you post this shy, cute little puppy needs the perfect home. They had 2 labs, the older labs that were super, super sweet, and they were confident labs. So this puppy goes home to these 2 labs, and he's just one of the pack now. And he doesn't even remember he was afraid of stuff. I love when they go with other dogs. Yes, it just is such a confident. As long as I tell people, they will pick up on your other dog's bad habits.
Yeah, true.
So, but they're like, no, like these dogs, they're just like, they call them the Tootsie Rolls because they're just fat old labs, And they all get together, and the dog he's just bloomed because it was the right pairing, and that's why testing is so important.
It is, and I've done this enough times that you do temperament testing at 7 weeks, and at 7 weeks that temperament is still very fluid.
Yes.
I always tell people it's kind of like fear stage in babies. They get to that 6 to 9 month mark, different for each baby, and they don't want to be held by a total stranger because they're starting to have that fear stage of like people that they don't know. And so you wouldn't just thrust your baby into the arms of a total stranger. And so some puppies blossom that confidence faster. Some of them leave less confident, and so it's not like it's a good or a bad test. It's not like they get graded on this if one puppy is better than the next. But you have families that are better equipped for certain dogs. So if they have dogs in their household and they have dogs that can be good leaders, you could take a puppy that's less confident and they will absolutely blossom in the right supportive home. The flip side of that is I always tell people, like, I'll give them the example of a puppy that's uber confident, the alpha, quote unquote, in the group that is not afraid of anything. I would never let a first time puppy family take that puppy unless they are committed to that training. And I have scared people away from those uber confident puppies more often than not. And they end up choosing a puppy that they can blossom in their training knowledge along with the puppy's confidence growth. And I love watching that play out. And I think as long as we can give them the tools to make that decision as informed as possible, they're going to have a better outcome because of it. And we can see that in their pack life, right? If they're not super shy as a pack, that they're going to get there. But if they struggled during their tests, that's absolutely reflective of how they're going to struggle during that transition. And, this is going to let the families be better equipped to support puppy. It's going to help them understand better where they're at developmentally at this point so that they don't make those bad mistakes. Because you're right, if you have this puppy that's not confident and now they go thrust it out into the world.
We're going to take it to the 4th of July fireworks. We got it this weekend and we're going to take it to the fireworks.
Where every family gets together.
Which I used to do.
I know, because we're excited.
Oh my gosh, I know. What was I doing this poor dog? I just, like I said, when you know better, you do better. and you just got to do better, you know. But it's like, what I wouldn't have liked that if I was an extreme introvert and you took me to the fireworks. Like, I would be mortified.
In our last podcast, we talked about Jeanette Forey's book that she put out, the Raising an Empowered Puppy.
Podcast.
Was it this one?
I think so.
Oh, it's all a blur.
Because we're not doing them on the same day and changing our clothes in between. We're not.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
Anyways, so
a whole week later,
there was just a segment that one of my families sent me, and it's talking about how we interact with our puppy isn't. How did she say it? We're not trying to be. Oh my gosh, I'm totally going to butcher this. You need to approach your puppy in a calm, respectful way, and you need to respect where they're at in terms of their development, but also have expectations, right? So like if your puppy is being wild and rambunctious and you have a bunch of people over and you're allowing your puppy to continue acting that way, or your family members are treating your puppy as if it has no boundaries and expectations, your puppy will be formed within those means. So taking a step back and being a little bit distant in terms of your affection so that there's expectations first is super important. And this puppy family was like, I always felt like it was not as loving to treat my dog that way. But now that I understand that they need to have those rules and expectations first, she said I'm able to set better boundaries with my family and my friends when they come over, because I want them to know that like this puppy needs to behave a certain way before they can give it any sort of love and attention, and that's okay.
Right.
You know, it's not like you're not loving your dog. You're actually loving your dog more because you're having certain expectations before giving them that attention.
Absolutely. Especially if you have like a very overconfident, extroverted puppy.
Or the flip side of that, like a super shy
that doesn't
puppy.
want a hand in its face immediately when you come into the house.
Because it could get there. It absolutely could get there if you support it the right way. But if you don't...
Right.
It might regress even further.
For sure.
Understanding that is super important. And I think temperament testing is really important in seeing that come out. And you can't do it till they're 7 weeks.
Right.
That last week too, you do the vet reports.
Yeah.
And how many times have you gone in with your puppies and had something come back on those reports that is different than what you were expecting? Trying to think of, do you have umbilical hernias?
We're just one.
So it's not super common.
Yeah, it's not. It is with burners, though. I know.
Super common.
I listened to a whole podcast on it one time.
It's a dime a dozen.
It was like, wow, and it's like, find me one that doesn't have a hernia. You know, it's just crazy.
And
it was very
it's the nature of the beast, right? Like every breed is going to have something, and Berneses, for whatever reason, have a lot of umbilical hernias. It's more of a genetic defect than it is anything else. Have you ever had like bite issues?
One underbite. Yeah.
So you can have. Short, long, you can have narrow.
That was a whole learning, thing. But thankfully, we share a vet on most occasions. We have some other ones we work with too, but he was very like, this won't affect her. And like if the family wants to call and talk to me about it, they can, whoever picks her, if it's a hesitation. Yeah. So that was nice that he gave that, like, I can talk with them.
Absolutely.
I thought that I really appreciate it because that can scare people. And I try to tell people, like, as much as we try so hard to breed the perfect puppy, it's just like humans. Things come up. Absolutely. Like, it's just, we're all a genetic mess basically. And you can take a test and you can not pair certain dogs, which is great and it helps a ton. But somebody could have a heart murmur, somebody could have a hernia, somebody could have an underbite, or overbite, whatever. So
and some change. Like you can have certain bite issues that they can outgrow, certain bite issues that are not life altering. I've even years ago I had a grade 1 or grade 2 heart murmur that was completely benign. By the time they went in for their next checkup, it was fine. And the vet even told me, like, typically we hear these at 8 weeks and they're completely gone by the next time that they come in. So whatever causes it at that point. But if it's like a grade 3 or a grade 4, that's probably never going to resolve. And those are dogs that would need, potentially life-changing treatment down the road. Right. And so having that information for families before they make their decision is really important. And from a pet standpoint, I would have no issue choosing a dog that had an umbilical hernia or a base narrow in one of my poodles or doodles, because that's super common when they're puppies, but they tend to outgrow that. Versus when you're looking at it from a breeding standpoint, obviously you want to make sure that you're choosing a dog that checks as many boxes for you that, you know, things
Sorry.
that, you know.
It's Wisconsin. It's our state bird.
So, you know, I don't know, what are things that you look for in your breeding dogs that you make sure they have?
For the Pyrenees, because this is just specific to my breed, I'm really looking for a certain size. I want a bigger Pyrenees. I do. So I feel like they've been bred smaller and smaller all the time. So like when I got my first one, my first AKC, you know, that I talked about in the last episode, I bought her from Michigan, so I didn't see her till I got her. And then, I mean, she was maybe 76 pounds full grown, which isn't bad, but I was really looking for something bigger.
Who's that?
That was Chloe. And then talking
She's not
with
still that
no,
small.
when talking with the breeder and stuff that she had later after I had purchased her was like, oh yeah, she was the runt or something, which I wish I would have known, but it's fine because I love her and she's a matriarch of my program, and all her puppies have topped over 100 pounds, so that's awesome. But I do like a bigger puppy.
That boxy shape.
Yeah, I do. And I have peers that look all different, you know, but I'm really attracted to that. It's like certain look, bigger look.
Do you keep badger markings?
No, I don't care about that. Typically people want them all white, which they'll eventually fade to all white. There's very rare. I have like, out of all the badger marking puppies we've ever had, maybe 2 that retained. They always have a little like apricot-y coloring around the ears and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's really, people want white. So even if they're born with badger markings, a lot of times people won't pick them because they're like, I want all white. And I'm like, don't worry, they'll get all white, you know.
What about when it comes to temperament for your Great Pyrenees? Do you feel like you've seen that it's
very picky
pretty,
about temperament, yes.
Do you feel like it's pretty stable, like how you send your puppies home at 8 weeks? Do you feel like they've maintained that temperament, or do you feel like it changes just depending on the homes that you send them into?
I feel like with the peers, it doesn't change as much. I can really tell who needs to work on a farm and who needs to be a couch potato, I feel like.
True.
Yeah, like there's the puppies that I'll come in at 5 weeks, you know, and they'll like bark at me, and I'm like, you need a farm. So I'll really push that for those puppies. Yeah. And they'll make excellent guardian dogs. But for the most part, I'd say 98% of them just want to be couch potatoes. Like, they don't care. But
so
there is some...
if you're doing one versus the next, if you're breeding for more livestock guardianship.
And I'm breeding more for family pets at this point. Not very many people want a livestock guardian dog. So I'm very, like, for us, for Pyrenees, and I'm sure you guys have your own breed traits that come up, but they're resource guarders, so they can be very nippy with their food and things like that. So I definitely pick one who'll sit back, let others eat, because they're going to go into guardian homes where there's possibly other dogs and children, and I don't want any, you know, accidents happening. So I'm really picky about that, because I've had a lot of Great Pyrenees with really bad resource guarding issues, and it sucks, to be honest. It's hard because it's bred into them for years, because then they'll stay with the sheep. They'll stay because that's where their food is, that's where their sheep is, and don't you come in here, I'm going to get you, you know. And so just trying to breed that out of them, because a lot of them are going into service. A lot of them are just family pets because they just want a gentle, nice dog for their family.
And if you're developing that in the first 8 weeks, it has to come with a commitment to move away from it when they leave. And I think, again, getting back to rules and expectations within your home, like if a family understands that that's a trait, from a pet standpoint, I've seen them outgrow some of that if they're in the right home. Yes. But if they're like in a livestock situation, obviously you want them to be doing certain things. So it really depends on where their placement ends up. And so for you wanting, you know, breeding dogs that are something different, or going into guardian homes, it's different than dogs that are going to be working on a farm. And so understanding that and placing them in the right places that are best equipped to help them with where they're at right now is super important too.
And I feel like genetically personalities get passed on. I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm very picky about the poodles I use. I'm really picky about my mamas. I have not, and when I started I wasn't, and I had a female that, I mean, she had 6 puppies in one litter, and I think they all ended up being rehomed because they were so neurotic. And she got spayed, but I didn't know at the time. Like, I wasn't educated enough to realize, like, now when I breed a certain dog and I keep back one of her puppies, I'm like, that's her twin, you know, like it's her personality, or it's his daddy's personality. And I love that. Absolutely. Because they're good dogs now and I have such good breeding stock. But I didn't know that back then. And so it was, and I'm telling you, breeding, I know you can chime in on this, but like breeding the genetically, the personalities that are so great. Every dog's gonna have their flaws. There's always gonna be things you have to work through. And then just all the testing we do and how we raise the puppies, I have not had one return because a puppy cannot be handled.
Right.
I would knock on wood, 100% homing, like they've thrived, survived, done great, other than somebody has a major move in life. We're selling the farm.
It's the product of the environment.
So, and it's not, and I'm not judging them. Things happen. I tell my families all the time, come back to me. I don't care.
We're going to support you.
Right. Well, and I'll help you find a home for this dog that fits the dog with your help. But just don't put it on Facebook Marketplace or some group. Like, let me know where my puppy goes. But that's the only time they've come back. Last summer we had 2 dogs go to a farm. And the families decided to downsize and move into the city, closer to the kids' school, all the things. I totally get that. But these are farm-raised dogs. They need to specifically go to a farm. They're over a year old. They are not house-trained. And within my circle of people waiting for dogs,
you can find somebody.
I found a family who's willing to take both of them.
Yeah.
And so and I know this family. They've actually got a pure doodle from me, and they have their own farm, and they were waiting for a Great Pyrenees puppy. But we were able to work together. They never had to be posted on my page that we're up for rehoming. So that worked out really, really good. And I've had people reach out I need an older dog, and then someone's like, hey, we have this livestock guardian dog. He's amazing, but we decided to sell all the sheep. And he's bored. I get it. Let's find him a home. And so I can be hey, this guy just contacted me. Let me give you his number. And we work it out in there. So I would say it's 100% success rate. Obviously, I don't know everything. I'm sure people have rehomed my dogs without telling me, even though they sign a contract. But it has revolutionized the way we find families and how it works. So I highly recommend it. And Jeanette Forey, Bab, has a breeder evaluation class you can take, you pay for. Just go to our website, you can find it, and it will take you through everything. And we were doing this before the class. I just did the class to get certified just so I look more professional. But you can get certified and take in the evaluation class.
So you understand how to
If you're rehoming puppies all the time, do this.
Well, and I think
seriously, what are
that
your thoughts?
gets back to the original point of understanding your breed.
Yes.
Knowing the breed that you're taking home, knowing the puppy that you're choosing, right? Mm-hmm. So part of that 8 weeks. So Shaylin is just like us, where we have a private Facebook group. So every single day.
Yeah, that's true. We should mention that. They're seeing the puppies for 8 weeks until go home day.
It's not
we're not just show up on go home day.
One interaction.
Yeah,
you might get the puppy while it's sleeping, and it could be the most neurotic one in the group or the most confident one in the group. And you're like, oh, it's so calm. So I tell people all the time, this is why I got it.
Good job.
This is why we give so much content to our families so that they have everything to base it off of. It's not it's just some willy-nilly decision that you make on the fly, or you're choosing based on a picture of a puppy at 2 days old. Right. My first litter, that's what I did. I didn't know any better.
Me too. 2 days old. What was I thinking?
I know. Now I do. I still remember taking those pictures in my basement on our little red chair. But now you know better, so you do better.
Right.
But allowing families to make an informed decision based on the information that they have. And I would say in Bernedoodles, what I have learned over my years of breeding, and especially now that we've taken it to the level with training that we have, is this is a breed that is highly adaptable. Mm-hmm. They are highly moldable within the environment that they are brought into. And that's where Jeanette's training comes into play when she talks about, number one, meeting your dog's needs in order. Mm-hmm. If you have concise rules and expectations and your dog learns how to live within your home, and you make sure that they're getting enough mental and physical exercise, and then you're giving them love and attention, it goes in that order only, they can become whatever you want them to make. And I've seen the most confident puppies turn into the coolest dogs.
Yes.
And I've seen the most shy puppies become the most playful and happy dogs.
For sure.
And there's growing pains in between there, right? There's days that you have to listen to them very oppositionally oppose being in a kennel when they don't want to be in a kennel. Or, there's days that, maybe this less confident dog is struggling in the car, and you're working through some of that nervousness and getting them to a point where they're more confident, or with visitors coming in and out of your house. But if you're committed to the journey from the day that you bring your puppy home through the first year of its life, but actually putting in that daily effort, I've seen that process and that transformation of their personality, and I love watching it. And I feel like if you go into it with the right preparation, right? You're planning before puppy's even born, which most of our families are. And then you're working through that first year and dedicated to helping support them with all of the right, tools and access to programs that will support you, or books that you can read, whatever it might be, podcasts. Maybe you hear something from us that, helps you learn in one way or the other, or find someone else who maybe makes more sense than us. Who knows? But, find what works for you and how you learn. And I see those puppies just thrive. And that's where I can say that I think temperament is a little bit more fluid because this breed is so human focused. And I've learned things along the way that help families capitalize on that too, like hand feeding and some of the different things that we can talk about.
That's a big one for us too with the resource guarding, is hand feeding a lot.
Yeah.
But if you're a puppy buyer and you're going into it and you know these things, it does make it easier to pick, to know, like, I could be picking a quiet, shy puppy, but I'm okay with holding it back and introducing things slowly. And that's how my quiet, shy puppy buyers usually are, so I appreciate that about them. And then they're so proud of themselves too when they're watching this puppy get confident, because they've walked with them and they came, and like, our puppies get the same treatment every day, so it always baffles me when there's one sitting in the corner looking so scared. I'm like,
we don't do anything different.
I know, and if I go in there, he'll climb in my lap and kiss me and whatever, but I'm like,
it's not going to rush to the gate.
I'm like, why are you? But usually they're one of the last ones picked, so as every puppies leave, they get more confident. They're getting more like, okay, I'm not going to get trampled. Yes. I'm not, and I, like, you see me now, and a lot of times they just get overlooked. Yeah,
they can blossom as they're more individual, and that transition from pack life to independent life is really important. And I think helping support families through that so that they can make it, a decision. If you work full time and you have a dog that's really shy and needs to have that support and socialization, that's going to be really hard for both you and puppy to go through that, versus if you have a dog that's crazy confident and you're not willing to put in the time that it takes to give them good boundaries and work with them and teach them so that they're not getting themselves into trouble.
Right. And I think with, like, what Jess and I do as well is something with our puppy families is we do offer training. She offers training right there at the kennels. So you can leave your dog and have it trained to just, especially if you got, and now I hate to, I say assertive and people think aggressive, and that's not what I'm saying.
No, not at all.
Assertive is just a competent puppy, and that's a great thing, especially if you have a exciting life that you want this dog with you. You want the dog backpacking. You want the dog at family vacation. You want the dog going to work with you. Whatever. You want an assertive dog because it's going to be confident.
Absolutely.
But people get those two words mixed up.
Empowered
so I just want to,
is another one.
I just want to clear that up. It's not aggressive. Aggressive is nipping, slamming other dogs, getting up over them. Like submit to me kind of body language. That's not what I'm talking about. So, I don't know where I was going with this, but it's awesome to see them progress. And then we also do offer, if they don't want to stay, they can just do an online training program too. So we're trying to set them up and you up, like if you were buying a puppy from us, with the tools to help you with this puppy.
Because everybody learns differently, right? Like, I am a hands-on learner and I'm always learning something new. And I love following different trainers, like on Facebook. I love that if you like one reel, you're going to get 18,000 more dog training reels. And so my suggestion to everyone is just do that. Like, how much do we mindlessly scroll through Facebook? So like a couple training videos and you'll get something that might teach you a new way to teach something. And so we're constantly learning new stuff ourselves from a training standpoint. But like supporting our families and giving them tons of options, through those private groups. I do this, you probably do too. Like, here's some training videos that I find helpful, or some podcasts that I've listened to. And, at least it gives people a little bit to check out, and then they can go and see if they like more of that. If they like the tangible book feel, they can try this book, or if they like the online program. Both you and I use Baxter and Bella. So if people have never heard of it, it's a great online school. And I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is only waiting for the in-person puppy classes later. I hear this all the time, like, oh yeah, we're good. We signed up for puppy class. And I like, that's great. And I love that people are doing that, but you can only learn so much when you go one day a week for 6 or 8 weeks. Once you get to 4 or 5 months old, like you've missed so many important training milestones.
That's true. I never thought of it that way.
And that's where that 8-week decision is so important, that you go into it informed. Like you know how to implement these training skills once you leave, and you know where your puppy's at to be able to take off from where they leave when they leave the nursery. If they're shy, you need to slow that down, versus if they're confident, they need that from the moment that they step into your home. So I love watching that decision play out for families. And I think, from a breeding standpoint, a lot of it is similar. Obviously if there's genetic defects, that's going to factor into a breeding decision more than it would a pet decision if they're minor or major, defects. But from a pet standpoint, I love guiding families through that and saying these are what you have to work within with these different options, and what do you feel like is going to fit into your life best, and helping guide them through that decision.
Right. And I feel like too, I've bought in from breeders too, and I've circled back when we've had issues, and I've just kind of gotten poo-pooed off. It's very frustrating when we have a dog joining us today. Let's see. Can you see? So she loves attention. But hi sweetie. Come in between us. Yeah, you can't reach me way over there. So I just remember circling back and just being like, hey, we're having this like reactive issue, or we're having this or that, and it's like, oh well, there's not much we can do about it, and I'm like, that's so frustrating to hear that. Where it's like, where I want to at least, even if I don't know the answer, I still want to like look up a video for them or something on the training stuff we have, and send them a clip, or
Yeah. Because I really do feel like most of the issues, and don't get me wrong, I am not a perfect dog trainer.
No.
I am a horrible
I tell
dog
people,
trainer.
do not have me train your dog. I pay someone to come in here and train dogs because I just want to give them their own way. I'm like, they only live like 10 to 12 years. Give them whatever they want.
My dogs know how to work me over 100%. And
it is hilarious watching Jess's dogs with Jess.
They're totally mama's girls. And that's what I've made them. And so I don't fault them one bit.
I mean, there are queens.
I'm like,
you're the queen. You do whatever you want. And I'll make you whatever you want for dinner. Like, you get ice cream
as I
later.
say, not as I do.
Right, but if you're a family picking a puppy, this is different. These are our working girls. They provide for our family. They help pay for our kids' sports, because this is a job. We do make money off of it, and we do spend money on it. But, like, they are providing income for our family. So I do feel like I don't want to scold you. I don't care if you counter surf.
I do. So,
but if you're going into a home and they're going to be your pet, that is different.
Say, it's different. Like, we have 4 dogs that live with us. How many live with you?
We have 5 in the house, and then 2 livestock guardians.
So, I mean, it's different when you have one family pet or two family dogs that, like, your expectations of their behavior probably is a little bit different than ours. And we do have hard rules. Like, counter surfing is a no. Alexa learned this week that she can't just steal venison off of my counter. Boy. But she still tried. So there are things that are acceptable within my home, and then there are things that they totally get away with. Yeah. But they also understand that they can't be destructive in my house. They've never chewed on things that they shouldn't. They've never ruined things that they shouldn't. That is true. We don't allow that kind of stuff. There are behaviors that are expected. They're not going to be demanding of my attention 24/7 because they know that that's not the rules within my home. Right. And I think that's where you have to draw the line from a training standpoint. What is acceptable within your home, and how do you want your dog to act? And if you want your dog to be welcoming people in and out of your home, you have to structure that into their life from very early stages, and give them the tools to know how to act when that happens, and that's what I love doing with our pups that come back for training, is giving both the puppies and the families the tools that they need to implement that when they bring the dog home. And I love watching that play out. It's one of my favorite things. And I wish my dogs were trained as well as some of my puppies. Don't get me wrong.
I always tell my daughters who work for Jess, I'm like, you're training the next puppies I keep. And they have trained a couple of my guardian home ones. And I think it just gives the guardian family a better start. I do talk to families that want to sign up for our training. They're like, I just don't know if I can go 10 days without my dog. But it is so worth it to go 10 days without your dog.
Absolutely.
Because the struggles you're having and the things that are happening, they're going to be pretty much gone, or you're going to know how to handle them.
Absolutely.
Like if the dog is rushing the door every time people come, and we teach that dog place, you can eliminate that. Because, I mean, these dogs don't get smaller. Bless you.
And it's cute. It's cute when it's a puppy that's jumping up and giving you kisses.
130 pounds, it's not cute anymore. So you want to establish some of those things. And if it's too hard for you, like it's too hard for me to discipline. I just love them. I'm not a good disciplinarian. I'm going to be honest. So I just would rather pay someone to do it and teach me how to do it, and I don't have to work through all that. Like that's how I look at it.
And I sent Sophia off to training. This was before we did our own training on site. And I kind of did it just to be able to see what they offered, what they did, and learn from it. And my takeaway from that training program was that it was great. Mm-hmm. I learned a lot about how they trained the dogs that they had there, but there was not the follow through on my end because I didn't know how they were implementing what they were implementing, and I didn't know why they were teaching what they were teaching or how they structured it. And so what we've done in our program is help the families learn through pictures and videos. And so again, like in the first 8 weeks, our families get all of this stuff to learn how to train with information before the puppy goes home, so that the minute that dog walks through the door, they know what to do and how to set up boundaries and what's acceptable and what's not. But then if you come back for training down the road, if you're working on certain things or if it's just for regular obedience training, we will send videos of how we're teaching that, because I want my families to be able to, we can teach everything that we can here. But if that dog goes home and they have no
Speaking of naughty dogs, she wants to be a lap puppy right now, but she's going to have babies. Yeah.
But you have to be able to enforce those expectations when puppy goes home. And I think that that's so important in understanding your pup's strengths and what you feel most confident. And if you know going into this that you're going to be like Shaylin and I, where you're going to be
I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses. My weakness is dogs.
You have to understand that and maybe make somebody else in your household the person that's going to be enforcing some of those rules, or learn how to engage with food so that your dog learns that you're just not a plaything, that you're also going to be giving food through good behavior and some of those things that we can talk about too.
And if you can find a breeder who offers this, it's so helpful, whatever kind of dog you're looking for. We're not saying like, oh, buy a dog from us and we'll do this. We're saying whatever dog you're looking for, whatever breed fits your family, whatever personality, whatever energy level fits your family. If you can find a breeder who at least has some kind of training program in their back pocket, like a Baxter and Bella online, like we didn't always offer in-house training, but I could at least offer them this. And I think it's such a good bonding experience too, to work with your puppy. Like even if you're going to do the class, that's your last resort. At least you're doing something with your puppy. At least you're getting some key things, even if it's a little later than it should. At least you're just getting out there with your puppy and having this time together and learning some things to do.
And I love watching families get involved as a family unit. Like Baxter Bella does a great job teaching kids and empowering kids how to train. And we can talk about hand feeding in a different podcast too, and just the importance of how that changes the dynamic within your home. But
she's like 92 months pregnant right now and like ready to give birth any second. So she's all about the snuggies.
Did you know dogs are only pregnant for 63 days? We have to grow them for 9 months.
It's not fair. Well, of course, they're doing like 10 puppies at a time.
Which is even more amazing.
I know.
It's a total God thing.
It is. It's so awesome. Yeah. But anyways, so, I mean, we should probably wrap it up here. We're getting at the hour point. But yeah, this is kind of how we choose puppies. Also, I will throw in there a lot of times I'm drawn to certain puppies. Just intuitively, where I'm just like, this puppy has my heart.
I keep them all. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but there's always like, in every litter, there's always one puppy. And that I'm just drawn to, that I'm like, I feel like I need to keep this puppy, or I have a certain family in mind, and they're very open, and I'm like, gosh, I do
love watching that play out. I love that my families ask my opinion. At the end of the day, they get to choose the puppy that they want, but I do love that they listen to our advice. They see what we see on a daily basis, and they factor that into their decision. And I do feel like more often than not, if I could pick the way that the puppies would go home, they end up in the homes that I would have chosen.
And it's funny because they'll come to visit at like 3-4 weeks or whatever, and they'll pick a puppy at that time based off their looks. Like, this one's so cute, I just love this one. But by the time they're really starting to grow and get their personality, and we do the personality testing, they'll switch because they're like, yeah, actually, I don't think this dog would make it in our house, or like this dog wouldn't be able to keep up, or this dog will keep up. Like, we're going to be camping and we're going to be going here, and they're super friendly and all the things. And so they change their pick, and that makes me really happy that they're willing to listen.
Absolutely.
And they're following along and getting a good understanding of what this dog's personality is like, and it just helps the puppy process go so much better. And I have so many families come back to me, and they're like, we picked up one at a shelter one time, which is amazing if you can do that. But there's seasons where you can't do that, where you might have little ones and you don't know the reactiveness of a dog. And so you want to go through a breeder. And they're like, I'm so glad we found you, because we feel like we picked the perfect puppy. I hear that so much, and I love that.
I do too. And I mean, your puppies all look the same, right?
Yeah,
like they're
basically.
all white, mainly. Unless, I mean, now your doodles are getting some color, but like for Bernadoodles, excuse me, they can come in any variety of colors. And I don't know how many times people come in on their application and they're like, we want a tricolor female, and they leave with a red boy or something totally different than they would have ever chosen. And I love seeing that play out because it means that they're putting the emphasis on what truly matters, and that's temperament first and foremost. And
absolutely,
you know, I love seeing that play into that decision every single selection process that we have. And I love that those 8 weeks of development are what lead them to that daily interaction through those Facebook groups that we do, all the videos, all of the information that we share, just everything from socialization and sharing that with our families and talking about where this puppy's strengths are comparatively to its sibling and watching them make an informed decision at the end of the process.
And I always say there's no perfect puppy. They're flawed just like us, but if we can help you get to where you need to be to get one that fits your family and your lifestyle, that's the goal. And because we want the puppy to be successful, we don't want the puppy being rehomed, we don't want you having issues with the puppy, you know. So it's like, it's such a blessing to me when they really pick based off of temperament. I've had people go back and forth. They're like, okay, I think I really want this one. Well, actually, is it okay if I switch, you know? And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. Like, if that's what you're feeling, because if you're like first pick or something, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. Like, you'll know when you know.
And it's like with kids, what works as a parent with one child does not work with the next. And so trial and error and working through that and having that relationship with our families to say, what have you tried? Here are some options of things that you can look at. Here's some different training tips. Different trainers have different philosophies.
Not move back so far because so
fancy pushed us out. But you know, giving people options and letting them see what is working for them and what works for their dog, and if it doesn't, having a different idea, and just, you know, supporting them in that way. I love being on that part of the journey with my families.
For sure. So
I think
we should wrap it up.
Yeah.
So if you're picking a puppy, really find one that you're going to be able to watch it grow up, and hopefully you can find a breeder who does some temperament tests. There's more and more of this, I think. Yeah. More and more of this temperament testing and people putting intentional time into educating their puppy families. And if you're picking puppy stock, it's a lot of, like, you know, just health, genetics, parents' personality. And keeping your own. Yeah. If you're a breeder and you're watching this or listening to this, being able to follow your own puppies is just the most amazing thing. And being able to keep back pups from your own program. I wish I would have known. I know, me too. In those early stages, how much I should have been keeping back, like Willows and Tillies. Oh my gosh. I know. Oh, there was some of my favorites. I only have one stud from Chloe and Boomer, and I should have kept every female that was ever born. I never have complaints on these puppies. They're like, they're the best dogs ever. Do you have any more Chloe and Boomer puppies? So I'm like, keep your babies. No, back. I know. Yes. Man. All right, cool. Well, and at the end of October, I'll be launching, and Jess will be in there, a Breeder's Inner Circle. And so you can be looking for that, Bark Market and Company. And this stuff will be posted in there too. But yeah, so that'll be coming out at the end of October. So yeah. So anyways, have a good day, guys. Thanks for joining us. Yeah. Bye. Wherever I shut this thing off. There we go.